Welcome to the role of psychological concepts in coaching, where the realms of psychology and coaching unite. I am Nancy El-Hayari, your guide on this journey, brought to you by the passionate teams that trace and thrive through coaching. We're dedicated to equipping coaches like you with the cutting-edge evidence-based strategies to enhance your practice and impact. From emotional intelligence to neurodiversity, each episode is a deep dive into the tools and techniques that can transform your coaching and your clients' lives. Let's embark on this journey together, one insight at a time. Welcome back to the role of psychological concepts in coaching. Today, we're going to talk about mindfulness in coaching. We're honored to have here with us Jocelyn Pepe, a distinguished figure in the realm of health coaching. She has a rich academic background in the psychology and neuroscience of mental health. Jocelyn is the founder and the head of wellbeing at TRU, a workplace wellbeing organization. She brings a refreshing perspective to the corporate world. Not only is Jocelyn a certified START with Heart Facilitator in education with Gradium, but her work transcends borders, fostering coaching cultures in educational institutions globally. Her commitment to well-being extends to her personal life as a devoted mother, where she applies coaching principles to nurture her 3 children's growth and self-awareness. In today's episode, we're exploring the powerful intersection of mindfulness and psychology in coaching. Hi, Jocelyn, and welcome to the show.
Hi, Nancy. It's great to be here. Looking forward to our conversation today.
Thank you, Jocelyn. I'm equally grateful to have you with us today. Let's jump right in. Could you please define mindfulness within the psychological framework?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's something really important to acknowledge here in that mindfulness is really rooted in ancient contemplative traditions, and it's been picking up steam in, more Western psychology and neuroscience due to its benefits for mental well-being. And so from my perspective, mindfulness is really about being more aware, paying more attention, being deeper in the present moment with acceptance of what is happening right here and right now, without judgment, with more empathy and more compassion. And it's really about the ability to pay more attention to thoughts, feelings, sensations in a non-reactive or non-judgmental manner.
That's a fascinating perspective, Jocelyn. Could you please tell us more about the bit of non-judgmental within mindfulness?
A lot of human suffering, and there was a Harvard study about it recently, that 50% of the time humans are in the future or in the past in their thinking. And so oftentimes suffering can occur when we're ruminating in the past or fearful of the future. And being able to be present in this moment right now, non-judgmentally, is really about stepping deeper into self-compassion for one's current reality. And so from a coaching perspective, I really feel like coaching in general brings people into being more mindful. And then from a psychological and neuroscientific perspective, the psychological terms, mindfulness is being integrated into more therapeutic approaches, such as mindfulness-based stress reduction or mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, which was built off of CBT as a way to manage stress and improve emotional regulation. And the neuroscience piece is the scientific research that's been coming up around the changes in the brain structure and function in order to change neuroplasticity for greater emotional regulation and greater self-awareness from the prefrontal cortex through the amygdala, which is more of the emotional region of the brain. So non-reactive is being able to be present without allowing a flood of energy or emotion from our nervous systems to cause a behavior.
That's very insightful, Jocelyn. Let me see if I can summarize this correctly. Essentially, what you're saying is that being present in the moment involves not just being aware and mindful of our emotions, but also understanding how these emotions can influence our actions and behaviors. And by fostering a non-judgmental presence, we're essentially cultivating self-compassion and a more grounded reality. Did I get that right?
Yeah, for sure. So when we are more mindful, it's a way of being. And so from the perspective of coaching, our way of being can impact what we do. So mindfulness helps us be more aware of what's happening inside of our bodies, in our surroundings, in our interactions, without having to do something about it in that specific moment. So there's the being and the doing that really get intertwined into that mindfulness approach. So the behavior piece is when we're more mindful of our thoughts, feelings, or emotions, we can have an impact on changing our behavior that leads to increased quality of life or leads to different outcomes or goals that we want to achieve in our life.
It seems we can really benefit from asking ourselves whether our thoughts are in the present, future, or past. This takes us to the next question. In your experience, how does mindfulness enhance the practice of coaching?
Yeah, that's a really great question. From my perspective, coaching is a mindful practice. Coaching is a place and an opportunity for individuals to slow down and pay more attention to themselves. So when we think about modern day society, human beings are so busy doing without being mindful or thoughtful or careful of how we might be feeling or thinking or doing things in our life. So mindfulness really gives us that opportunity to slow down and be more present to what's currently happening right now. And that, I believe, is what coaching really does. It's a mindful practice for curiosity, for deeper levels of listening, for a mirror to be held up to us, because a lot of times behaviors could be habitual and we don't necessarily know what we don't know. So coaching can help people see things in a new and different way. It can help find new perspectives that might be more beneficial for, mental well-being or for navigating life. So coaching in itself is a mindful practice.
Absolutely, Jocelyn. I love how you described coaching as a mindful practice, encouraging us to slow down and truly listen. As coaches, being fully present help us in so many ways, from active listening, regulating emotions, to staying focused. And as you've highlighted, in today's world filled with distractions like social media, it's easy to lose that focus. Even in simple tasks like eating, we find ourselves not fully present or engaged. Considering this, what benefits do you think mindfulness could bring into our lives if we were to integrate it more fully into our daily routines?
That's a great question. So building on what we were just talking about, that coaching is about being mindful. And now it's important to acknowledge that in that dedicated amount of time in a coaching conversation, that's where it's easier to be more mindful. But as you're saying, it's when we get out into our busy doing life where it becomes challenging. The benefits that I see are mindfulness helps us with emotional regulation. So allowing us to connect into greater awareness on managing stress, managing anxiety, or managing different challenging emotions. That's an opportunity in our daily lives to cultivate additional emotional regulation. And so it allows individuals to be more responsive versus reactive. When we're too busy moving quickly, it's easy to have emotional reactions or outbursts that aren't thoughtful or mindful or have greater levels of stress and anxiety. So bringing more mindfulness in our day-to-day helps with the stress and anxiety and those challenging emotions. Also, bringing more mindfulness into our day-to-day helps improve focus and attention. So just like you were talking about, on demand, we get everything as quick as we want it. A lot of times we are doing things multitasking. Like I watch my kids on their devices and they could be doing a homework project, watching a TV show, and talking to me all at the same time. But when we can be more mindful about what we're doing, there's improved focus and attention. So that can enhance concentration and singular tasks versus multitask. It increases self-awareness for sure. So being more observation of thoughts and feelings and behaviors without judgment, individuals can gain a deeper understanding into their patterns of behavior and how they're acting in their day-to-day life. And as well, mindfulness integrated in our day-to-day can help with greater communication. So as we were talking about earlier, the coaching skills like curiosity and the deeper levels of listening or the shifting of perspectives, taking the time to be more mindful allows us to develop those present and attuned communication skills, which allows for stronger and deeper relationships and greater connection. And so that's an empowering way of being in life versus being swept away unconsciously into Netflix or into some form of social media. And it's about not numbing anything that comes up. So as we were talking about those emotions and things, it's about not numbing what comes up. We're not tuning out, but more about tuning in. And so I see like mindfulness and coaching and integrating it into day to day as a tuning in versus tuning out.
Wow, tuning in. What a powerful way to put it, Jocelyn. You've outlined many benefits of mindfulness. And as any skill we try to learn or hone, we could face some challenges. So, what are some of these challenges that coaches can face when integrating mindfulness into their practices?
Yeah, there's some really great opportunities to explore here. One of the first challenges that I would say coaches might integrate when incorporating mindfulness into the coaching practice is a client's readiness or familiarity or resistance around this conversation. So whether it's around mindfulness or oftentimes in coaching conversations, I hear a lot of leaders say, well, this has worked for me up until now, why? And with fear of change. So I really feel like that coming up against a client's readiness to try something new and try something different that they might not have explored before might be challenging. And that is the opportunity for a coach to co-create what that might look like in terms of in the coaching practice and then integrating it into life. I also feel as coaches, it's important for us to be in a practice of mindfulness and walking the walk and talking the talk. A challenge that a coach might face is the ability to go as deep with the client as they've gone with themselves. So there could be a dissonance in terms of, the coach's depth of practice and mindfulness. And so just getting more in tune with ourselves as coaches is important as not to come up with challenges with client conversations. And then, behavior change is hard. So clients could become discouraged easily when trying to insert new behaviors and integrate more mindful behavior in the hustle and bustle of day-to-day life. And so having that opportunity to really reinforce the self-compassion and that a learning curve and behavior change is not a linear path. It's a roller coaster or a Ferris wheel that, we always come up against opportunities to realign, to readjust, and to reduce. Just that behavior change perspective around trying new things and the failure mindset that might come up in a client conversation. And then the last thing I wanted to acknowledge here and challenges that coaches might face when integrating mindfulness into their practice is trauma. And so having a general sense of trauma information around mindfulness and what it could bring up for people, I feel like is really important for coaches, and just coaches have a referral conversation in those initial conversations and designing the relationship. And so having a referral for a therapist if something like this does come up. So always being sure to co-create integrating mindfulness into the coaching conversation so that it's a decision that the client is agreeing with, and being aware of just having some trauma information around what could possibly come up for individuals who have suppressed emotions and do keep busy as a coping mechanism.
Thank you, Jocelyn. That was an amazing response. You've raised insightful points. Let me summarize a little bit here for our listeners. Client readiness and resistance to change are some of the challenges that we can experience in our practice. And you've mentioned the importance of co-creating when addressing some of these challenges. You've also mentioned the concept of walking the talk, which resonates with me. It couldn't be more relevant. You've also highlighted the importance to address moments when client may feel discouraged or view setbacks as failures by introducing self-compassion. And finally, I appreciate your advice for coaches to be well informed about trauma and to maintain a network for psychological referrals to direct client to appropriate support when needed. Shifting our focus after exploring these challenges, I'm eager to learn about the strategies you found most effective for fostering mindfulness, both personally and for your clients. Could you share some of the approaches that have been impactful for you?
Yeah, this is a beautiful. We kind of talked about this already. Be a student of mindfulness, walk the walk and talk the talk. Cultivating this into your own day to day is really important as we continue to coach through and practice that self-compassion with self, like you would speak with a small child or a toddler, or, if you're in a conversation with a best friend. There's a few other more practical ways about integrating mindfulness and strategies for coaches to cultivate. I wrote a blog article recently about the five senses and how we all have this physiological part of ourselves. We all have our five senses, and we also have that sixth sense, which is more of our intuitive sense. So, as actual tangible strategy and practice, really dive into your five senses and leverage those to create more awareness in your day, whether that's listening to the birds outside or being in nature more often, or being more mindful in your conversations with your family and putting your actual phone away. That's something that I've done recently, is like when it's time for dinner and time with my kids, I put my phone in my purse so it's not accessible or handy just to pick up and look at, because that's just become such a habit or a behavior. Something else I do throughout my day in terms of being more mindful about my presence and its impact on my health and my mental health and well-being is breath work. There's times when I recognize that I haven't even filled my lungs up. So being more mindful about really filling the cells in our lungs with fresh oxygen before we get into, the deep belly breathing. It's like getting into the mechanics of breath and checking in on a body scan to notice if your jaw's clenched or your eyes are hyper focused or your shoulders are not back. Notice in your body where you're feeling things. So just checking in and just taking a minute before responding. That's always a coaching tip and tool, is to put yourself on mute before you respond so that you don't jump in too quickly. Do that in a meeting, do that in another setting. And so, there's so many things. So whether it's, your five senses, it's a meditation practice, it's more mindful breath or body scanning, being more mindful in your walk or in your movement and connecting with nature more often are really great ways to cultivate a mindfulness practice. And I know journaling has become a conversation, and I talk with so many clients who don't enjoy journaling or don't want to journal. And I just say, do what works for you bio-individually. So try something. And so from a health coaching perspective, we talk about bio-individuality and how important it is to try things that really feel like something you'll enjoy. So if you enjoy being in nature, try that first. If you enjoy journaling, try that first. If you enjoy breath work and meditation, that's more of a date with yourself, then try that first.
Awesome, awesome. As you were sharing these strategies, I got myself thinking, do I do this? Do I do that? Because, in a busy day, sometimes we get caught up in our to-do list that we forget to be mindful. And I do agree with you. Finding our own way, or a way that we love, to mindfulness can be more impactful as a practice. With that in mind, I'd love to hear about a success story where implementing these mindfulness strategies changed a client's perspective or outcome.
Absolutely. Thanks for this question. Tapping into mindfulness around purpose and values, and how alignment into both of those places from a greater why I'm here perspective really helped one of my clients go into that macro picture of purpose and what's driving her, as well as align actions day to day with values. So being more mindful with a simple question or a simple self-reflection at the end of the day really helped in terms of getting her into more resonance in her life, where are my actions today helping me achieve my purpose? Yes or no? Or what did I do today that felt aligned with my purpose? And then again, another curious question is what I'm doing now aligned with my values? Because when we're values aligned, that brings resonance, that brings excitement, enthusiasm, fulfillment, and growth. But when we're out of alignment with our values, that's dissonance, and it really brings things feel harder. It also impacts our mental and emotional well-being, because when we're not aligned in our values, it feels out of integrity with ourselves. So we're not doing things that feel right for our profile. from that more bigger picture purpose and values conversation, I have worked with this specific client, and it just brought more resonance and clarity and overall well-being and quality of life for her. And a second example I have is different and unique in how mindfulness helped client achieve greater quality of life. And this was organizational coaching. And so working amongst a team in this day and age, a lot of emotional triggers were coming up with my client. And so we worked through those emotional triggers, used perspectives work by shifting ways of looking at the situation or perspectives on the other person, and really tuning into what was being triggered inside of my client. This allowed him to cultivate greater peace, greater calm, and a deeper connection in this workplace relationship that allowed for more freedom and less resistance. And so that was really around perspectives and emotions and tuning in more mindfully to the reactive habitual responses that he was having to this specific person in order to take a more curious approach to why they might behave the way they do, and then why I might react, or why he might react the way he's reacting, and how his reactions were actually what was causing the disconnect in the relationship. And when he learned how to harness the emotional piece around it and get more curious with his colleague, there was greater synergies in the relationships and greater peace and calm for him as a leader and as a teammate.
Amazing. These stories are inspiring, and they do highlight the transformative power of mindfulness in coaching. Thank you for sharing, Jocelyn. Going to my next question. Could you share one mindful exercise where our listener can use in their daily lives to cultivate or even strengthen their mindfulness practices?
Yes, I believe the one exercise that we talked about earlier that all of us as human beings have access to, and is a simple reminder, is really tuning into the five senses, being more in awe when we walk around. So whether it's in our communities, on the streets, in our home with people that we are connected to, creating more eye contact, or having a wider lens or perspective on the bigger picture in which we operate. This is really helpful in really tapping into the interconnectedness we have as human beings with each other and with the greater universe that we are existing in. A lot of suffering happens when we're not connected to all of the multiple aspects of life. So that's the seeing part, is really being in visual awe of our lives. The sensing, the smell is, whatever hemisphere you're living in, depending on the seasons, it's like tuning into the smells of the outdoors, or tuning into the sense of the cooking or the meal that's in front of you, and really like being curious about the scent and what it brings up for you. Then you could go into the listening. And as coaches, we're all trained in that deeper level of active listening, bringing more of that into our day to day and really truly listening in conversations that we might be having that might just be, quick, but listening at a deeper level, because our energetic presence when we're in that active listening can be felt. And that's all what people are looking for, is to be heard, felt, seen, and acknowledged. So that's the listening piece. And then the taste, we've talked about that in terms of foods, really just enjoying and noticing like the different tastes. So tapping into those five senses, I think, is something really easy and just really accessible. And then there's one other that I wanted to share that I leverage a lot for myself in being more mindful around decision making. And I also use it with my clients. And it's tapping into other data points we have physiologically. And so the first is heart. What is my heart saying about this topic, about this situation, about this decision? The second question is, what is my head saying? So really tuning into our logical self, whereas the heart is tuning into your emotive self. And then the third question is, what is my gut or my intuition telling me? And when we ask these three questions, we'll notice that each one of these parts of ourselves, these physiological parts of ourselves, have different information to give us. So it's leveraging ourselves to be more mindful. So those would be the two methods that I would start with that are really easy and accessible. And then it can go further into, breath work, visualizations, or journaling, or whatever those things are.
Those are wonderful exercises. Thank you for sharing, Jocelyn. One of them got me thinking. Even though I know I see, listen, and taste, but how often do I actually make eye contact with people or even fully notice the smells around me, especially when I'm going to the store or just walking to my car? It really made me question. When I step outside or do something, do I truly see? Do I really listen? Do I genuinely smell? Not me, of course, the things around me.
Well, it's like when we learned listening skills in coaching, it's we hear, but are we listening? It's taking it to that next level. We see every day, every moment of every day, but are we really seeing? It's like broadening the perspective.
Yeah. Well, and that takes me to the second question, which is because, okay, we do, like, as coaches, let's say we worked with a client who tried to, bring about their presence and mindfulness. How can we assess that? Have they cultivated mindfulness? Is there a way to tell, oh, they're really progressing, they're not progressing, etc.? Because I feel like these are more in the mind of the person. So as coaches, how can we see that progress or measure it?
Great question. So first, I would say, there's mindfulness questionnaires. If coaches want to go online, there's, mindful attention awareness, or there's the 5 facets of mindfulness. There's questionnaires that are self-reporting on an individual's attention or awareness in their daily activities, whether it's observing or describing or acting with more awareness or non-judgment of our inner experience or non-reactivity with an outer experience. So one is you could tap into leveraging some questionnaires in your practice. And then 2 is simply self-assessment measures on a scale of 1 to 10. And I often use this in my practice on a scale of 1 to 10 and get your client to start out at the beginning of your mindfulness journey in coaching is on a scale of 1 to 10, how mindful are you in your day to day? That gives you a starting point. And then it can go into, midway on a scale of 1 to 10, and then continue as you progress through the relationship. So there's a numeric quantitative value to something that's a very qualitative reality. And in that self-assessment, the questions could be something about on a scale of 1 to 10, how much calm do you feel in a day? What is your level of resilience from when we started to where you're at? What is your level of responsive or reactiveness? And then another really important part of this is recovery. We talked about it a little bit earlier in that individuals might get down on themselves because they still exhibit old patterns of behavior. And what I always remind my clients of is it's about recovery. You're not going to totally eliminate a behavior potentially in 6 months, 12 months. However, your recovery time might be quicker, or your awareness of that might be quicker. So just checking in on recovery time. And then once you have those 2 ways of measuring or kind of assessing growth and development, coach through it more as you come into every conversation, go into deeper exploration of the person's perspectives, of the impact that the mindfulness is having on their daily life. Continue to deepen the conversation and create awareness around those patterns of being and behavior change that your clients are looking to evolve into.
Absolutely. These are powerful questions that can lead to deeper levels of understanding and awareness. As we draw this conversation to a close, what key message would you like to leave our audience of coaches? Something that they can carry forward in their practice and maybe even in their personal mindfulness journey?
Beautiful question. It's a quote by Thach Nhat Hanh. The greatest gift we can offer others is our presence. Mindfulness really taps into our being selves. And at the end of the day, when we think about end of life, what impact do you want to have in the world? People aren't going to remember the busyness or the doing. People will remember, and this is from Maya Angelou, how you made them feel.
Wow, that's so true. Thank you so much for everything that you shared with us today. It was really inspiring, and I loved the end quotes that you ended with. And it just all ties in on the idea that mindfulness is not just a practice, it's actually a transformative journey. It reminded me of the transformative power of mindfulness, and how it is not important not just for our minds and spirit, but also for our bodies to rest a little bit.
Yeah, what I'd like to add to what you've just shared is this is for our health, and this is for our overall quality of life. There are so many scientific studies out right now to say mental health challenges are on the rise, and overall quality of life is on the decline. When we slow down to be more present, aware, conscious, kind, compassionate human beings and rewire our neural pathways to do this, we alleviate stress and suffering, and we elevate the consciousness of ourselves and of humanity. So it's important work.
It is. And it's not going to be an easy journey, but it's a worthwhile journey. Thank you very much, Jocelyn. This has been wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us on the role of psychological concepts in coaching. Stay curious, stay inspired, and join us next time as we continue to explore the transformative power of psychology in coaching. Until then, keep thriving and making a difference. I am Nancy Al-Hayari on behalf of Race and Thrive Through Coaching, wishing you all the best on your coaching journey.